Casa Cultural Peruana y Voces deL Perú provee este broadcast como un servicio público. No es una interpretación legal ni una declaración de la política de Casa Cultural Peruana. Las opiniones expresadas por los invitados son propias e independientes de Casa Cultural Peruana. Los puntos de vista y opiniones expresadas por los trabajadores y voluntarios son de los trabajadores y voluntarios, y no reflejan necesariamente el punto de vista de la Casa Cultural Peruana o de cualquiera de sus funcionarios. Si tiene alguna pregunta sobre este descargo de responsabilidad, comuníquese con nuestra oficina a info@casaculturalperuana.com. Es importante que el broadcast se realice de una manera respetuosamente y respetando el Código de Derechos Humanos establecidos en Canadá y el mundo. Casa Cultural Peruana and Voces deL Peru provides this podcast as a public service. It is not a legal interpretation or statement of Casa Cultural Peruana's policy. The opinions expressed by the guests are their own and independent from Casa Cultural Peruana. The point of views and opinions expressed by the workers and volunteers are their own and do not reflect the point of view of Casa Cultural Peruana or any of its officials. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact our office at info@casaculturalperuana.com. It is important that the podcast is conducted in a respectful manner and respectful of the Human Rights Code established in Canada and the world. Casa Cultural Peruana et Voces deL Perú fournissent ce balado autant que service public. Il ne s'agit pas d'une interprétation juridique ou d'une déclaration de la politique de Casa Cultural Peruana. Les opinions exprimées par les invités sont propres, indépendants de Casa Cultural Peruana. Les points de vue et opinions exprimés par les travailleurs et les bénévoles sont les leurs et ne reflètent pas les points de vue de Casa Cultural Peruana ou de ses fonctionnaires. Si vous avez des questions au sujet de ces clauses de non-responsabilité, vous les communiquez avec notre bureau à info@casaculturalperuana.com. Il est important que le balado se déroule dans le respect du Code des droits de la personne établi au Canada et dans le monde.
Welcome to the National Military Cemetery of Canada. Je vais vous souhaiter la bienvenue au Cimetière National du Canada. First and foremost, we must acknowledge that we are the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people who have lived here since time immemorial. I will start by asking all those who are able to rise for the playing of the Canadian National Anthem, and followed by the Peruvian National Anthem. Je vous demande que tout le monde revienne, si possible, pour les hymnes du Canada et de Pérou. On behalf of Beechwood Cemetery, the National Military Cemetery, and as a member of the Latin American Soldiers Remembrance Committee, I am proud to welcome you to the third annual Latin American Remembrance Day ceremony. I'll introduce myself. My name is Nick McCarthy. I'm the Director of Marketing, Communication, and Community Outreach, and a member of Beechwood Cemetery, and a member of the Latin American Heritage Soldiers Committee as well. We are so cherished and proud to acknowledge all our ambassadors who joined us today. The list is far too long to list out, so I do appreciate your presence. I'd like to thank the leadership of the Canadian Armed Forces, as well as all our defense attaches from around the world. Again, this is a show of unity, it's a show of commitment, and it's definitely a show of appreciation for all of us together. So I thank you, and I do apologize for not formally naming you all, but we'll be here for another hour, so we'll forgo that formality today. As you know, every year we ask a different embassy to be serving as co-hosts, and we are proud to acknowledge the Embassy of Peru serving as our co-host this year. As many of you are now aware, again, the history has changed, and we have learned the lessons of that history, that over 80 Latin American soldiers enlisted to fight in Canada in Canadian uniform. 80 of them died during the First World War, and another more than 40 Latin Americans came to Canada on their own and fought and died in Canadian uniform during the Second World War. The majority were part of the expedition forces during the First World War, and many joined the Canadian Royal Air Force, as we're going to speak to a little later. The history, although our history of our Latin American soldiers and civilians who came to Canada has been forgotten for over 100 years, this ceremony brings that back to life. This event honors the memory of those soldiers by giving them a historical identity and provides true representation to the community that, again, has shown up in force today. This ceremony will follow a traditional remembrance ceremony with a few minor changes. Each year, as the different host countries are highlighted, we are happy to include a poem from each country. So again, we're going to welcome the Embassy of Peru as our third co-host and recognize our long-standing relationship with them and the partnership and commitment to security in around the world as well. So with all that said, I'd like to invite Ambassador Manuel Geraldo Tavera Espinar of Peru to say a few words. Ambassador.
Good morning. It's a pleasure saluting Commander of the Royal Canadian Navy, Vice Admiral Angus Hockett, representing the Chief of the Defense Staff, General Jenny Cardinal, Brigadier General Christopher Robideau, representing the Commander of the Royal Canadian Air Force, Lieutenant General Eric Penny, Major General Greg Smith, fellow ambassadors, and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Deputy Director of Western Hemisphere and the Department of National Defense, Mr. Alex Miranda, active members and veterans of the Canadian Armed Forces, honorable defense and military officers, members of the families of the Guatemala and Peruvian veterans who died in the Great World War, members of the press, dear members of the Peruvian and Latin American community, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the territory of the Algonquin and its Native people who have lived on this land since time immemorial. Today we honor the brave Latin American soldiers who during some of the most critical moments in world history voluntarily enlisted in the Canadian Armed Forces. With courage of pioneering, they fought in the First and Second World War, standing for universal values under the Canadian flag. Their bravery transcends national boundaries and highlights the immense contribution of the Latin American community to the global struggle for peace, and justice. This gathering takes place during Latin American Heritage Month in Canada, a recognition that Parliament proclaimed in 2018 to celebrate the influence and contributions of our community. It makes this moment event even more special as we not only commemorate the fallen but also celebrate the vibrant culture that Latin Americans have brought to this nation. This year, I am especially honored that Peru is the host country for this ceremony. As its representative, I remember with pride the bravery and sacrifice of the Peruvian and Latin American soldiers who joined the Allied forces during the World War. Although their stories long set aside, they remain a testament to honor and sacrifice, solidifying the legacy of our country's commitment to world peace. However, and I would like to use this opportunity to remember, however, Peru's presence in Canada predates this war. One of the earliest connections can be found in the note of the American traveler John Boyd, who on July 1792 wrote about his arrival at Nootka Island aboard of the ship Columbia, which had set sail from Boston. Nootka Island is an island close to in the west coast of Vancouver Island. Boyd recorded in his diary, the Spanish settlement on Nootka consisted of about 50,000. He also said that there were about 200 inhabitants, including Spaniards and Peru Indians. This excerpt serves as evidence that the first European colonial settlement in West Canada included Peruvians. And how these Peruvians arrived to North? Well, they were sailors. They were part of the crew aboard of the frigate La Favorita, which was built and outfitted in Callao. Callao is the main port of Peru, under the command of Captain Juan Francisco de la Bodega y Cuadra of Lima, whose mission was to explore the western coast north of Monterrey. Juan Francisco de la Bodega y Cuadra, born in Lima in May 1744, embarked on his naval career in 1761 after moving to Spain. He served in the Viceroyalty of New Spain, whose capital is in present day the city of Mexico. It was evident in Vancouver's touching words following Bodega y Cuadra death in November 1794. He wrote, "As on former occasions, I have not hesitated to express the admiration and respect that Mr. Cuadra's conduct inspired in us all. Now that he is no longer with us, I feel compelled to pay tribute to his memory, while it takes him our deepest gratitude. He leaves us with great sorrow at the loss of a man whose generosity enriched all of civilized society." We know that Captain Bodega y Cuadra passed away in San Blas, Mexico, on March 1794, while serving as a commandant of that force. But of, of the other Peruvians who accompanied him to Nootka, little is known about their fate. However, it's tempting to imagine that some choose to settle in Vancouver, starting families whose descendants have since spread throughout Canada. Back to the 20th century. Although Peru didn't officially deploy troops to the battlefront during the World War, many young Peruvians voluntarily enlisted in the forces of other nations, demonstrating their unwavering commitment to the fight for freedom. Their courage and determination to fight for freedom enabled them to make significant contributions to conflicts that shaped the course of history. One such individual was Victor Protalin. Victor Protalin was a Peruvian-born Paul Estivado, who became notable for his service during the World War I. He voluntarily joined the Canadian Merchant Marine and a fleet responsible for transporting vital supplies across dangerous waters. Despite the risk, Protalin self-funded his journey to Canada in order to contribute to the war effort. Tragically, he lost his life when the steamship Halifax sank near the Azores on December 1917. Although the exact cause of his death remains unclear, his name is memorialized on the London Tower Hill Memorial and the Canadian Virtual War Memorial as a tribute to his sacrifice. We must also honor the memory of Peruvian sailor A. Velasco. We don't know his name. A. Velasco, born in 1894, who served in the Canadian Merchant Marine. He perished when His Majesty's ship Royal Edward sank on August 13, 1915, during the World War I. Like Victor Protalin, he sacrificed exemplified the dedication of Peruvians to fought for ideals that transcend national boundaries. These stories not have been preserved without the tireless effort of Capitan Rey Garcia, to whom we owe our gratitude for illuminating the lives of these courageous Peruvians and many other Latin Americans who, by making Canada their home, defended its values of peace and freedom. Captain Garcia Salas, your work not only uncovers a vital chapter of Canadian history, but also strengthens the bonds between Latin America communities and the military heritage of this country. Thank you. The Latin American community in Canada has experienced remarkable growth in recent decades. In 2001, Canada's population stood at 31 million, with 244,400 individuals identified as Latin American. 20 years later, by 2021, that number had surged to over 580,000 out of the population of nearly 37 million this year, an impressive increase of 137%. Projections suggest that by 2021, the Latin American community in Canada will exceed 1 million. This growth is also evident in the Canadian Armed Forces, where descendants of Latin American immigrants, along with first-generation migrants, have found their place among its lands. It's gratifying to observe that today, as in the past, the Canadian Armed Forces uphold the same principles and values that we share with our people: peace, freedom, and justice. Over the years, the relationships between the Peruvian and Canadian Armed Forces have remained vibrant, characterized by collaboration in technology acquisition, such as aircraft, helicopters, and radar, as well as officer training. A recent example of this cooperation is the joint training in operating Canadian-made Otter aircraft acquired by Peru, conducted in both Yellowknife and in Iquitos. This initiative has strengthening the ties between the Peruvian Air Force and the Royal Canadian Air Force. This partnership continues to grow through our collective efforts to represent our three armed forces in a joint mission to maintain global peace and security. Today, I invite all of you to reflect on and honor the sacrifice, courage, and selflessness of those who risked their lives and tragically lost them. In the fight for values, we must continue to uphold freedom, justice, and human dignity. These principles, which we were pivotal during the World War, remain profoundly relevant to the challenges we face today. Finally, I would like to extend my personal gratitude to the authorities of the National Military Cemetery and the members of the Latin American Soldiers Committee for organizing this significant ceremony. Your dedication and effort have been instrumental in making this event possible, and your commitment to preserving the memory of our brave soldiers is truly inspiring. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you, for attending my visit.
I'd like to now invite Captain Ray Garcia Salas, head of the Latin Heritage Month Planning Committee for National Defense, and of course our lead historian for the Latin American Soldiers Committee. Without his tireless effort, this story would not have been brought to light.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished members, in this sacred space of Beechwood National Cemetery, I stand not only as a proud member of the Canadian Armed Forces and the Latin American Soldiers Committee in Canada, but also as a voice echoing the bravery and sacrifice of Canadians with Latin American roots. Today, we gather to commemorate the third Latin American Remembrance ceremony, a solemn event that resonates deeply with the enduring spirit that unites us all. I extend my deepest gratitude to the respected diplomat corps, the dedicated members of the Canadian Armed Forces, military attaches, political leaders, communities, and government organizations. I am especially honored to welcome Jane Foster and her spouse, who for the first time in Canada join us in representing the families of the Royal Canadian Air Force heroes, Theodore Hempstead, John Gordon Smith, and Dennis Costa. Your presence lends tremendous significance to the cause we stand for, and your unwavering support is the foundation upon which we build this tribute to honor unsung heroes. Like our ancestors who fought in the world wars, Jane Coster, the Dewey, daughter of pilot Dennis Coster, and her spouse, had come to Canada voluntarily at their own expense to unite with us in paying tribute to the Latin Americans who joined the Canadian forces during the First and Second World Wars. Our journey to connect with these remarkable families began in February 2022. How did we establish this connection? I asked my family in Guatemala to search for relatives of these Royal Canadian Air Force pilots, but they couldn't find them. Then, after searching everywhere for many hours and watching 51 YouTube videos, I came across a video edited by Barapasiani. It's an organization that deals with the story of Coban Alta Verapaz, where Diana Coster, the Boswinkle, daughter of pilot Dennis Coster, was interviewed. This led to a series of contacts, each one connecting us to the next one. And now, here we are, honoring and share legacy. This year, our hearts are especially warmed by the participation of Peru, the host nation. For this commemoration, with the full backing of the Canadian forces, the annual Latin American Remembrance ceremony stands as a vital reminder of sacrifice and solidarity. It aligns perfectly with the celebration of the Latin American Heritage Month in Canada, where communities unite to honor the brave Latin Americans who donned the Canadian uniform during the world wars. Their unwavering commitment to freedom is both recognized and celebrated. In our effort to preserve and honor this history, the Latin American Soldiers Committee has worked tirelessly to bring these stories to the forefront. Latin Americans' war stories have been inscribed in the nation's history, shared through newspapers, magazines, and public exhibitions, ensuring that the bravery of these soldiers is known far and wide. Their faces and stories are now etched into the fabric of Canadian society, fostering deep appreciation for the sacrifices made in the name of freedom. Next year, the LASC will proudly unveil the Latin American Soldiers Remembrance Book Volume 2, a bridge across time that connects generations and ensures the enduring legacy of these encouraged soldiers. Additionally, we will unveil the stories of the 3 volunteers from Guatemala who serve in the Royal Canadian Air Force. These works are not merely publications. As you know, they are monumentus to value, honoring those who fought for a better future filled with freedom and respect for human rights. We remember individuals like trimmer Dick Rotalin, sailor A. Velasquez, soldier Robert Lancashire, Captain Hedley Morris Harrison, Sergeant Democrito Riviero, and pilot Francisco Perez. Born in or connected to Peru, who embody the values of bravery, dedication, and sacrifice. Their stories resonate with us, offering timeless lessons for the challenges we face today. The contributions of these brave souls remind us of the strength that comes from multiculturalism and diversity. Just as these soldiers crossed borders and broke through cultural barriers to serve Canada. We too must embrace our differences and work together to build a stronger, more inclusive nation. I have often heard people say, I came to Canada fleeing injustice, and through my own efforts, I've succeeded. While this individual resilience is commendable, we must also recognize the contributions of those who came here before us. Those who helped build this Canada we cherish today. The freedom and prosperity we now enjoy were secured, in part by the sacrifices of these Canadians and Latin Americans who fought in the world wars. As we face modern challenges, from the environmental crisis to social divisions, let us remember that the path forward requires unity, just as our predecessors transcended their differences for a common cause. We possess the power to make a difference, just as these Latin American soldiers left an indelible mark on Canada's history. We too can shape its future. Let their legacy inspire us. Let their values guide us. Together, let us work hand in hand to create a brighter tomorrow for future generations. By honoring their sacrifice, we ensure a future of unity, strength, and enduring peace. These heroes are no longer unsung. We are their family now. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Captain, for your word. We'll now be moving into the sequence of the last post, a moment of silence, followed by the rouse and the lament. I'll ask all those who are able to stand for the sequence. There'll be a short moment of silence in between. I'll now invite Lieutenant Colonel Frank Maloney to read the Act of Remembrance.
Acta soberania. Unión Pacta, Jurisdicción Servicio. Latinosencanada local, en la cual de semana. Ninguna ley que te estudia, que se valor, no se vendrá a ti. We shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years come down. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we shall remember them.
Shall remember them.
No envejecerán como el deseo. Nosotros los condenamos. La edad no los cansará, ni los años condenarán. Al ponerse el sol y al amanecer, los recordaremos.
Los recordaremos.
We will now proceed to the laying of the wreaths. On behalf of Canada, I'd like to invite James Woodham, the Executive Director of the Canadian War Museum, to lay the wreath. On behalf of the Embassy of Peru, I'm Ambassador Manuel Geraldo Tavares Espinar. On behalf of the Embassy of Guatemala, Her Excellency Gisela Etelda Sazo, accompanied with the families from Guatemalan pilots. Families could come up and lay the wreath with the ambassador, please. On behalf of the Canadian Armed Forces, Vice Admiral Angus Topshee, Commander of the Royal Canadian Navy. On behalf of all veterans and their families, I'll ask Terry Hunt. On behalf of the Latin American community, I'll ask Betsy Requena of Casa Cultural Peruana and David Aguilera Carranza of the Center of the Culture of Pueblo. And in memory of all the fallen, I'll ask Captain Ray Salas Garcia and Giuseppe Marconi, members of the Latin American Soldiers Committee, to lay that wreath. I would now like to invite Catherine Demera of the Embassy Peru in Canada to read the poem entitled in English Mass, or in Spanish Masa.
In this ceremony, where we remember the Latin American soldiers who fought under Canadian flag during the First and Second World War, it is important to not only recall their sacrifices, but also the human stories that traverse those times of conflict. In this sense, the poem Masa by Peruvian Cesar Vallejo, one of the most renowned poets of world literature, offers us a powerful reflection on death, solidarity, and hope. Vallejo conceived this poem in a context marked by the human suffering he witnessed during the Spanish Civil War, a conflict that, like the world wars, brought with it unparalleled devastation. In Masa, the poet presents us with a hopeful vision, a call for collective unity, where solidarity and mutual support transcend even death. Through this work, Vallejo reminds us that even in humanity's darkest moments, it is the union of people that can revive hope. Mass. Mass is in English, translated by Robert Ford. When the battle was over and the fighter was dead, a man came toward him and said to him, "Do not die. I love you so." But the corpse, how sad, went on dying. And took him near and repeated, "Do not leave us. Courage, return to life." But the corpse, how sad, went on dying. 20 arrived, 100, 1,000, 500,000, shouting, "So much love, and it can do nothing against it." But the corpse, how sad, went on dying. Millions of persons stood around him, all with the same request: "Stay here, brother." But the corpse, how sad, went on dying. Then all the men on earth stood around him. The corpse looked at them sadly, deeply moved. He sat up slowly, put his arms around the first man, started to walk. Thank you.
Very much for the contributions, I think. As we mentioned before, this ceremony really honors the previously unwritten part of our Canadian history. It honors a group of soldiers, a group of citizens, a group of people who were unfamiliar with our language, unfamiliar with our military heritage, unfamiliar with the fighting customs of this great nation to come and fight in the battlefield far from home. We must look at that courage, we must remember the selflessness, and we must remember the belief that they were doing their part for a global community that we all represent today. So as we conclude the ceremony, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. On behalf of the organized community, I'd like to thank all of you for attending, and I invite you back to the main Beechwood building for light food and refreshments, as well as the presentation of a few certificates to the Guatemala families that have arrived. As I mentioned at the start of the ceremony, again, I'd like to especially thank the Embassy of Peru for helping us with this ceremony. And I will now invite Giuseppe Marconi and Captain Ray to announce next year's host with us. And afterwards, we'll ask that everyone come up to take a band-aid photo.
Well, every year we have you. there. Thank you so much for all the community, and the first year after Guatemala is the best for the next year. We work together, community, pastoral, and thank you so much. And thank you.
Guard, right, turn. Quick, march.
It's a very inspiring story, and we have a couple of continents. We have been friends and allies for decades, and sometimes hundreds of years. And this is a very special story. We've got Jane Coster here today. Thank you for coming so far. The story of Flying Officer Coster is an amazing one, where you have a very brave person who travels to a new country to do brave and heroic things for all of us. So I would like to thank you for your family's sacrifice. I'd like to thank you for Flying Officer Coster's service, and I would like to present you a certificate on Jerome Kinney's behalf, thanking you and acknowledging your family for all of your sacrifice and service. Thank you. There's somebody with a...
Yeah, we're gonna official.
I'm deeply honored to be here with all of you today. It is just an absolute overwhelming joy, all the planning and preparation that has gone into this occasion, and to be amongst so many distinguished guests, including our ambassador from Guatemala. It is a big honor to be here with you, and I know my dad, Dennis Kirster, would be so proud of this moment. I'm wearing one of his medals that he got during World War II, and I'm also representing two other families. That family, John Smith, whose daughter wasn't able to be here, and I brought along a bracelet that has been made with the buttons from his uniform. And also Robert Hempstead was with my dad when he enrolled in the RCAF. What an honor. It is lovely, and I thank Capitan Rey Garcia Salas for embarking on this magnificent project. Without him, none of this would have happened. And I think it's wonderful what he's doing for Canada and for the world, really, to remember our heroes and to not forget them and their contribution. And I would just like to end and say in a Mayan dialect, Kekchi, Bantiosh, Masali Jor, Kwankinarin, Maschinaus, Ottawa, Bantiosh.
And I'll now invite Ambassador Souza just to say a few words to conclude the formalities of today. Thank you. And of course, our host country for next year.
say so much. I want to be very brief, but I need to say, distinguished member of the organizing committee of the third annual ceremony to commemorate the Latin American community in Canada. Your Excellence, Ambassador of Chile, Peru, United States, thank you for coming to this ceremony. Distinguished officers of Armed Forces and Defense in Canada, at his presence, dear families of the heroes of Latin America, dear members of Jaguaris Balan Guatemala Cultural Center, to be present here, honorable member of the embassies of the Latin American countries, special guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Embassy of Guatemala, it is an honor to be able to address you on the occasion of the third annual ceremony of commemoration of the Latin American community in Canada, where an important tribute to Latin American veterans who served in the Canadian Armed Forces in the held. It is worth mentioning the courage with which our Latin American heroes faced the First and Second World War, demonstrating the brotherhood that has existed and that has united our countries with Canada, having fought voluntarily, and they will have done with their country of origin. Canadian history allows us to pay tribute to the Latin American combatants, and on this occasion to mention our three Guatemalan heroes, Theodore Hempstead, Gordon Smith, and Davis Costa. It is important to highlight the presence of some members of two families of our Guatemalan heroes who have traveled for this ceremony. They are Jane and Diana Costa, Alan Fersh, and Catherine Smith. Thank you very much for your presence. I want to mention the historical contribution and special collaboration of Captain Ray Garcia Salas, who has offered his dedication to this event. I also like to thank the Jaguar Isbalan Cultural Center for its cultural and folkloric participation of Guatemala in this ceremony. And it's my pleasure and Guatemala honored for the next ceremony of the fourth annual ceremony to commemorate the Latin American community in Canada. You are very sure that Guatemala will and have the host as you may be possible to get everything that we can do. Thank you very much and have a good day, and merci beaucoup for me.
Nosotros estamos conscientes que la libertad, la democracia y la paz mundial radica en el valor y el coraje de los soldados que luchan por ella.
We recognize all the values what the soldiers make for the peace and for make the democracy for us.
Es por tal razón que apoyamos 100% al Comité de Soldados Latino American Soldiers Committee en su finalidad de no dejar morir la memoria de esos héroes.
We believe in all what do you do for our community 100%, and we say thank you for everything to the community of Latin American.
Tenemos un acuerdo para entregar una medalla de honor que nosotros otorgamos a las personas y organismos que hacen o influyen en el desarrollo de los inmigrantes en Canadá.
We want to give a present for that honor for us.
¿Puedes leerlo en inglés?
It's a law who recognize this group, and the finality is the creation of the Casa Cultural Peruana, Guatemala, Canada. Is make community Guatemalan preserve the laces cultural and linguistic, and promote the image of Guatemala, and make the knowledge of our country, in this country, Canada.
We recognize the sacrifice, and we want to give a posthumous honor to the families of the soldiers who fighting in the World War I, World War II. This medal is deserved. Mr. John Gordon Smith, who has been a very patriot and sacrificed for the peace and freedom of the world. They fight in the Royal Canadian Air Force. This is the medal I want to give to the families of the soldiers, John Gordon Smith, Dennis Coster, and Robert Hempstead. Solicito la presencia de la señora embajadora para que pueda hacer la entrega de los certificados y de las medallas a la señora. Families they live in Guatemala, they
honor to deliver
these
medals to great heartfelt thanks. I've never been so decorated. My George, my son George. Means thank you. I'm very happy. And thank you to all of you for this tremendous honor. And I will be happy to convey your thanks to these three families, the other two families that are not here today.
Muchas gracias y gracias también a los miembros de mi grupo porque siempre me apoyan y están con nosotros. Gracias.
I was invited here, but unfortunately I was a little bit set back. I've been in a wheelchair for the past, it took me 2 years to come back out of it, so I'm very honored to be here today to witness this ceremony, and I would like to thank you on behalf of Canadiense, Aldo and Quinn, unceded, unsurrendered territory. And I would like to present an eagle feather to Mr. Garcia. I am a traditional dancer in the territory, and I've been doing this since I was 19 years old, and I've been gifted and with the honor to dance with the eagle feathers. Now, with the eagle feathers, when an eagle feather falls to the ground, we ask our veterans to come and retrieve the feather for us in a ceremony during our powwows. When we are dancing, we hold our feathers high up to the air as a symbol of prayer. Prayer for our families, prayer for the protection of our people. And we are all here on the same territory and traveling back and forth wherever we may be. And I'm so honored to have brothers when I am lost, even in my own territory, that I have my friends to come and guide me and show me the ways to even the places that I've not been to on my own territory. So it makes me proud, and it's such an honor to have you as friends here today. And I would like to present this eagle feather to you. There are very, very many children and women and people who are missing in the territory. So I would like to ask if you would be a caretaker of this and join me through prayerful watch over our children and our families. We can only be strong as we are united together. And I would like to thank you for asking me to be here and for allowing me to be here today. Chiwech. Chiwech. Chiwech.
On the name of all the Latin American community, I really appreciate and I am honored that the students here we are going to strengthen, as usual, our relationship because those communities are being here in Canada and also in all Latin America, and we share the same DNA. Thank you so much.
We have reached the end of our podcast, Voces deL Peru de la Casa Cultural Peruana, broadcasted live via Facebook and YouTube from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Thank you for tuning in. See you soon. Hemos llegado al final de nuestro podcast Voces deL Perú de la Casa Cultural Peruana, transmitido en vivo vía Facebook y YouTube desde Toronto, Ontario, Canadá. Gracias por su sintonía. Hasta pronto.